All right, it's time to create the helpers and pages. Let's get an overview of our helpers and pages. We're going to be modifying our helpers. We're going to finish adding logic to our constants. We're going to be creating the split screen responsive page, the responsive layout builder, the desktop web layout, the mobile and tablet layout, and we're going to finish creating the home page. All right, it's time for some live coding. Let's create our split screen page first. And what we're going to do is we're going to add it to the pages folder, and it's going to be a subfolder into here. So we're going to say Dart file. Let's call the subfolder responsive. We'll put all our Dart files, responsive Dart files inside here, right? It's going to be the split screen, the responsive, mobile tab, and desktop Windows pages here. So let's call this split screen, split underscore screen. Hit enter, and you notice that will automatically create the folder for you in Android Studio. Perfect. All right. Let's first import material. So what do we want to do? We want to create a stateless widget. So I'm going to say stateless, and let's call it, you call this split screen. Perfect. And what do we want to put on our build method? It's going to basically be a row because this is for our split screen, okay? So we want this to be just a row. And I explain here, we'll have children. It's going to be a row of children. So we're going to have first the list on the left side. Then we're going to have a vertical divider. And then we're going to expand the full width or remainder of the space for the user detail page, all right? So first will be the list screen. So we're going to use what? A size box. We're going to say the width, we want sizes, right? That's our classes we created before. And we want to say what? List width, okay? And the child, it's going to be the user list page, okay? Perfect. And then what do we want to do? Let's put a comma. Let me just scroll up a little bit here, okay? So I want to say, let's put a vertical divider. So vertical divider, and we want the width to be sizes. That's right, you call it the vertical divider width. All right. And then what's the last thing on our row, right? The details page. That's what we need. So let me scroll up a little bit. So we're just going to say expanded, because we want this to be fully expanded to the remainder of the size of the screen. And we're going to say the child is going to be what? User detail. Okay. I'll put an end. Let's save this, and we have ourselves a split screen layout. Let's open up our helpers folder here, and let's open up the constants Dart file. And let's start feeding, and let's start finishing adding the logic here. I'm going to add a comment, and it basically says, hey, this which device is going to take account of the device's view size, okay? Which is really, really good when you're resizing or changing orientation, because it gives you the width of the current rendered view, no matter where orientation the device is at. And what we want to do now, we want to actually add the logic to which device method on how to accomplish this. And I wanted to say here that we're not going to use the build context to do this. We're going to use the Flutter view, which is a really great way to do this. And as we add logic here, I also wanted to tell you that we could also use the widget bindings instance from the platform dispatcher. We could also use the implicit view, but I'm going to show you a different way to do this too. But there's different ways that you can do that. So I wanted to put there as a tip saying, hey, you could also accomplish this the same way. So the which device method is basically going to say, hey, what do we got? How much size do we have to work with so that we know what layout to display? So we're going to define this as final. And we're going to set the view. Let's get the current view that we have. So we're going to say widget binding. Okay, so widgets binding. We're going to get the instance. We want to do what? Yeah, you already called it the platform display. The platform dispatcher. That's a word. We want to look at the views and just give me the first view, which is the view available on the screen right now. Next variable is going to be a physical size width, right? Physical size width. It's going to equals what? Well, we're going to take the view that we just retrieved. We're going to say, what is the physical size of the devices? And what is the width? Perfect. Next, we're going to say, what is the device pixel ratio? Okay. And I'll show you in a second here why we want to do this. So we're going to, again, say view dot, device pixel ratio. You can see how this platform dispatcher, the widget binding, you can get from the view all sorts of information. Okay, the next variable is going to be the width in logical pixels. How do we do this? We're going to do a division. We're going to say the physical size width is going to divide, you already called it the device pixel ratio. Perfect. All right, so now we want to basically create our breakpoints to say, hey, let's look at our width in logical pixels, and according to our breakpoints, I want you to show this according this particular layout. So we're going to say return. We're going to use a switch width in logical pixels, right? We're going to say what? What are our breakpoints? We're going to say if the first breakpoint is less than or equal to 600 pixels width, we're going to return what? Responsive sizes. What? Mobile. That's right. But what if it's greater than or equal to 600.1 pixels? What do we want to return here? Well, not yet, right? We don't want to return anything yet. We want to say, and it's less than or equal to 1024 pixels wide. Okay. What do we want to return? The tablet, right? Responsive sizes, tablet. And again, you can change these breakpoints according to your need. Let's just tab those in. And then otherwise, what will be the default, right? We're going to say otherwise, if it doesn't match these breakpoints, we're going to return what? Yeah, I know you already called it desktop and web. Perfect. Let's close this out. Let's save that. And let's delete that because that's no longer needed. Excellent. Now we have one more thing to do. Let's just scroll all the way down. And we need to add the split screen to here that we created it previously, right? So we're going to say const split screen. There it is, comma. And let's save that, which is part of our body selected page split screen list of widgets. Excellent. And let's go ahead and scroll up and we'll go ahead and close this down. Let's create our responsive layout builder. So we'll go back to pages here on the responsive, right click, new, Dart file. So let's call this responsive underscore layout underscore builder. Excellent. Let's close the sidebar down. And let's import material. Okay. So this is going to be a stateless widget. And let's call it, of course, responsive layout builder. Perfect. And what is it going to be responsible for? Let's create some final variables here. We're going to pass some variables. The responsive layout builder is going to use a layout builder. So we want to pass either what the mobile widget is going to be, the tablet, and the desktop. In other words, our layouts. So let's create some final variables. Final widget. All three are going to be widgets. So this is first one is going to be mobile. Final widget tablet. And the third widget will be the desktop widget, desktop web layout, right? And now it's saying, hey, we're missing our final fields. Let's go ahead and add them. Let me add a comma here. Let's format it nicely. And that's looking good. So now let's take a look at our build. Okay. So what do we want to do here? We want to return a scaffold. Okay. So we're going to say scaffold. And we want to do a body. But what do we want to return on the body of the scaffold here? Well, we want to return a layout builder. That's right. Very good. And what is the builder going to be? All right, let's choose this. So we're going to have a build context. I like to, you don't have to do this, but I like to declare it. This is build context. And for the constraints, as box constraints. Let's do a comma at the end, save, so that reformats nicely. Okay, so what do we want to return here? So we want to return a switch, okay? And we want to say, okay, responsive sizes. Okay. What do we want to look at? We want to call which method. Yep, you already called it the which device, because the layout builder is going to say, hey, which device is running? And depending on what the device is running, it's going to return that particular widget, whether it's the mobile, the tablet, or desktop and web. Okay, let's do the open and close curly brackets. And we're going to say our responsive sizes. So responsive sizes, if it's mobile, well, return, yeah, you already called it, return the mobile layout. If the responsive sizes is what? Tablet? Then what do we want to return? That's right, the tablet widget, right? The layout. Or otherwise, what the default should return? That's right, the desktop web widget layout. Let's close on the curly brackets. Let's save. And we've got ourselves a responsive layout builder. All right, let's create the desktop and web layouts. So let's open up our sidebar. Under responsive, right click, new, Dart file, and let's call this desktop _ web. Okay, let's close sidebar down. Let's import material. All right, so is this going to be a stateless or stateful widget? Well, it's going to be a stateful widget here. So let's say stateful, and it's going to be desktop web. Perfect. And we're going to pass a final variable here. We're going to have a list of widgets. In other words, a list of what page is selected here, okay? So we're going to say list, and what kind of type? It's going to be widget, that's right. And let's call it selected page. So this is going to keep track of what page is selected. Users, is it the photo grid, or is it the dashboard? Let's say the final field. Okay, we can save that. And now, let's go ahead and finish here on the state side. We want to declare a late variable, okay, which is going to be the app state. There it is. And let's call this underscore so that we make it private, app state. And we want to initialize this on the did change dependencies, okay? And if you notice here, the to-do says above this, you don't want to put anything above that. Our init, our code should be after the super did change dependencies. And we're not going to do this on the init because this is going to be an inherited widget. So we need to use it on the did change dependencies. If you try to access the app state from the init, you will get an error when you run this. Okay, so what do we need? What do we need to do? So we're just going to say, hey, the app state equals what? I think you already called it. App state, app state dot of. Excellent. Unwrap it, and that's it. And now it goes up the widget tree and gets our inherited widget, and we have access to the app state where all the information that we need, okay? All right, let's return on the build. What do we want to return here? Well, we want to return a row. So this is going to be the desktop and web. So on our row, what we want to return here on the left side is the navigation rail. And then what else? A vertical divider, and then the page for the details, right? So we're going to do things a little bit differently here. Let's just take a look at this. Under children. So what do I mean here? Okay, I'm going to put up a tip here, and let's just go ahead and scroll this up. I know it's complaining right now, but yes, we're getting to it. We're getting to it. So what do we want to do here? Okay. And this next thing that we're going to do is only under certain scenario that can happen, but I like to use it. I like to put the single child scroll view and a container instead of that, and then put some box constraints. And that way, if certain browsers or even in Windows, you can resize the windows down to almost 0. And unless you do this, the navigation rail will throw off an overflow that says, hey, I don't have enough space here to put all my content. So this trick removes that, okay, under those circumstances. We're going to say single child scroll view. What is the child going to be? That's right, it's going to be a container. And on the container, let me just scroll it up a little bit. I'm going to put some constraints, okay? And be const. It's going to be box constraints, okay? And I want the minimum height to be 300 pixels. I just want it to be 300 pixels, that's all. You can change it according to your needs. And I want the height to be the media query. And it's going to be size of, not media query of. Otherwise, it's going to keep rebuilding. Every time rebuild happens, it's going to keep rebuilding a widget. But if you do size of, it's very performant. And I just want the height, okay? So I want this container to be the size of the height available. All right, very good. And the box constraints of the minimum height of 300 sits in a single child scroll view. When you resize this window down to 0, we're not going to get the overflow. Very good. So what's next now? In our container, we also have a child, right? So what the child is going to be, that's right, you already guessed it, the nav rail, right? We already created that before. The nav rail, here it is. There's our package there, right? And what does the nav rail retrieve, right? The selected page index. How do we get to it? We say, hey, app state, can you give me the selected page index? Perfect. Excellent. And then what else do we have on the navigation rail, right? We have one more thing. We have on destination selected. So on here, what do we want to do? So we want to get the integer, the index. So this is the index of the page that was selected. So when the user selects from user to photos, the grid, and the dashboard, the on destination selected is going to be called. And all we want to do is just say set state. And we say, hey, hello, app state, set the page index to what? To this index. Close it up. And not selected, but set page index, okay? Perfect. And that's all there is to this now, right? So now we want to add what? After the single child scroll view, let me scroll up. Now we want to do what? Yeah, you called it a vertical divider, right? And let me just put a little space there. So it's going to be a vertical divider. And we want the width to be what? We're going to look at our sizes, vertical sizes. And let's bring it in, right? Import it. Vertical divider width. Perfect. All right, let's scroll back up. And now we want the detail page to be what? We want it to be expanded to expand to the full available width and height, right? And the child is going to be an indexed stack, all right? Which is, I love using index stacks because they remember when you switch different pages, they remember where you were scrolled at, okay? So what is it? The index. We go back to the app state, right? App state. And what is it? The selected page index. Perfect. And what's the next? What are the children? Well, the children, we passed them in. It's going to be the widget selected page. What page was basically selected? Okay. Let me put some commas here. I'm going to save it so that it formats nicely. And that's all there is to the desktop and web layout. Now let's create our mobile tablet layout, which is going to be our last responsive page layout. New, start file. That's right. We'll call it mobile tablet. Perfect. Close the sidebar. Let's import material. And this is going to be, again, the same stateful widget. We're going to basically do the same thing as we did for the desktop and web. Very similar to it. So we're going to say mobile tablet is what this is going to be. And that's right. It's going to take what? A list of widget, right? What type? Widget. And this is going to be what? The selected page, right? Perfect. And yes, we want to add it to our constructor. We'll save that. That's looking good. All right, let's work on the state side now. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do a late variable. We want to get to the app state, right? And let's call it underscore app state, right? To keep it private. All right, and we're going to override again the did change dependencies. All right, and let's put it after that. So we're going to say, all right, let's get to the app state. We're going to go up the widgets tree. We're going to say app state of, unwrap it, and we get access to the app state all the way up to the widgets tree. All right, so let's now create on the build. What do we want to do on the build here? Well, we want to return a scaffold, okay? On the scaffold, we want to return the body, and the same thing, we want an index stat. And what is the index going to be? Let me just scroll up a little bit here. So it's going to be, well, we're going to go up to the app state. Say, hey, what is the selected page index? Perfect. And for the children, we're going to say widget, because we passed that, right? The selected page. Excellent. Now we want to do one more thing. We want to add a bottom navigation bar here, right? Because on the mobile and tablet, when we have that kind of size, we're not going to have the navigation rail on the side, on the left side, unless there's room for it, then it does the other layout. So we want to do a bottom navigation bar, which we already created, which is the nav bar custom widget that we had from before, right? Very good. Let's just save this so that it formats for us. And what do we have? What's the selected page index? That's right, you already called it. You're going to go back up to the app state, selected page index. And then from the on destination selected, right? All right, so this is going to be what? An integer, which is the index that's selected. We're going to do a set state. And we're going to say, hello, app state, set page index to the current selected index. Let's save that. And now we're done with the mobile and tablet layout. All right, we're almost there. It's time to bring it all together. So let's go ahead and open up the home Dart file. And this is where we bring everything together now. Under the build here, and we're going to remove the placeholder. And this is where, let me just put here like a little tip, okay? So remember that the user state remembers the selected user and also allows to refresh the detail page, okay? So what are we going to do? We want to use the notifier here, right? So we're going to say app state notifier, right? And what do we want to do? So what is the child? On the child, we're going to return the responsive, I know you already know, responsive layout builder that we created earlier, right? Let's save this. Let's format this a little bit. And what are we going to do? That's right. We're going to return each layout for mobile, tablet, and the desktop and web. See, all this is now coming together. And when anything changes, the responsive layout builder returns the correct layout. So for the mobile, we're going to return what? The mobile tablet layout, right? and it has a selected page, which is selected page, right? And which one? Body selected page, right? Because this does not use the split screen. So how about for the tablet? So we got mobile, tablet, right? And for the selected page, what do we return here? Right? We say selected page dot body selected page split screen. For the mobile and tablet, that's what we're going to return. And let's just format this a little bit nicely. Let's just do this. Scroll down. Our last layout. You already know what's going to happen. That's right. Desktop, web, right? And it's going to have a selected page, right? And it's going to say selected page. That's right. Body selected page split screen. Let's save this. And we are now done with our application. So next we're going to run it and see how it's looking. So the following are live demos for the iPhone, iPad, macOS, web, Pixel 7, Fold Out, and Windows that you created with our project. This is the phone navigation in portrait mode from list to detail with some hero animation. You can see how smooth it is. If you go landscape, you can see the screen, the detail screen also adapts and you get a split screen now. And the same with the photos, you adapt from portrait to landscape and also the dashboard. Let's take a look at the iPad. You have your split screen layout. And when you go landscape, it knows that you can also put a navigation bar, the navigation rail on the left side. And as you can see the photos, the grid goes from 3 to 2. Let's take a look at the macOS. You have your split screen with the rail, but the photos, you can see it adapts to the correct size. And if you resize, it knows the navigation rail goes away. You have the bottom navigation bar. Now it goes into like a mobile navigation. There's your hero animation from list to detail. And as you resize back, it goes back to split screen and the navigation rail. Let's take a look at the web. It should work the same way. There we go. It knows the layout. It knows how many grid to show. And if you resizes, it's resizing the grid view according to the size available. Very adaptive and responsive. Again, now it's doing the mobile animation. And as you resize, it goes back to split screen. Bottom navigation now becomes navigation rail. How about on a Pixel 7 Android? Here's our navigation with the hero animation widget and navigation transition, landscape, it goes to split screen. And the detail screens know to adapt according to the size that it has. So do the photos. We'll go back to portrait. As you can see, it knows to adapt correctly. Dashboard. Let's take a look at the Fold Out 8. It knows that you have enough screen size to do split screen, right? When we went to navigation, we went to landscape mode now. It knows how to show the different adaptivity to the grid view there, the photos, and back to the users. It knows that it has enough room. Now what happens with Fold? Now it becomes a mobile device like a regular phone, and it knows how to navigate accordingly. Excellent. How about running in Microsoft Windows application? Same thing, split screen with the navigation rail. You got your photos, your dashboard, and if we resize, it knows navigation rail now goes to bottom navigation bar and not to a mobile layout, and navigates as if it was a mobile environment. And adapts, of course, the photos, the grid view, and the dashboard. It knows how to resize itself and adapt according to the available size and orientation. Excellent. Let's get a summary of the helpers and pages. So you modified the helpers. You finished that in logic to the constants. You created the split screen, created a responsive layout builder. You created the desktop web layout. You created the mobile and tablet layout. And you finished creating the homepage. Next is our course summary.